A pristine 1967 Ford Mustang sits in an empty parking lot, its cherry red paint gleaming under the streetlights. What happens next sparks a courtroom battle that shakes the foundations of trust and truth. A desperate man points fingers at his girlfriend, claiming theft of his prized possession. But in Judge Judy Sheindlin's courtroom, nothing stays hidden for long. As evidence unfolds, a sinister web of deception comes to light, proving that sometimes the perfect crime starts with the perfect lie. When a supposed victim becomes the villain, Judge Judy must peel back layers of carefully crafted stories to expose a truth that nobody saw coming. 3 months before the fateful court date, James Bennett and Jennifer Thompson seemed the perfect couple in their small town of Millbrook. Their story began at the local classic car show, where James proudly displayed his restored 1967 Mustang. The car, a family heirloom passed down from his grandfather, represented more than just vintage American muscle. It was his connection to a past he frequently mentioned but rarely elaborated on. Jennifer, a kindergarten teacher with a spotless reputation, caught James's attention with her genuine interest in the car's history. Their whirlwind romance blossomed over summer drives and promises of a shared future. To everyone who knew them, they appeared destined for happiness. James, a successful insurance adjuster, often boasted about his car and his girlfriend, though those who knew him noticed he spoke more passionately about the former. The first cracks appeared during a rainy October evening. Neighbors reported hearing heated arguments from their shared apartment, though neither James nor Jennifer ever discussed what transpired. The following morning, James filed a police report claiming Jennifer had stolen his prized Mustang. His story, delivered with trembling hands and convincing tears, detailed how she had taken advantage of his trust, stolen his spare keys, and disappeared with the vehicle. The initial police investigation revealed curious inconsistencies. Security cameras around their apartment complex malfunctioned during the alleged theft, a coincidence that raised Officer Mike Rodriguez's eyebrows but didn't provide enough grounds for deeper inquiry. James's insurance claim sailed through without question, perhaps aided by his professional connections in the industry. Jennifer's sudden disappearance puzzled her colleagues at Millbrook Elementary. The dedicated teacher had perfect attendance for 5 years, making her abrupt departure with no notice completely out of character. Her closest friend, Jennifer Martinez, received a cryptic text message: "Things aren't what they seem. I'll explain when I can." As the case landed on Judge Judy Sheindlin's docket, the veteran justice noticed peculiar details in the filing. The timing of the insurance claim, submitted mere hours after the alleged theft, struck her as unusually efficient. Moreover, James's documentation appeared meticulously prepared, almost too perfect for someone supposedly devastated by betrayal. The morning of the hearing brought unexpected developments. Jennifer Thompson, far from being in hiding, arrived at the courthouse with a quiet confidence that contradicted James's portrayal of a manipulative thief. Her professional attire and composed demeanor caught many off guard, especially James, whose momentary flash of surprise didn't escape Judge Judy's trained eye. Local media, initially sympathetic to James's story of betrayal, gathered outside the courthouse. The case had captured the town's attention, presenting a narrative of trust destroyed and innocence corrupted. However, as Jennifer took her seat in the courtroom, those who knew her struggled to reconcile the alleged crime with her impeccable reputation. The air in courtroom 7B crackled with tension as Judge Judy reviewed the case files. Her decades of experience had taught her that cases involving personal relationships often concealed layers of complexity beneath their seemingly straightforward surface. As she observed James fidgeting with his tie and Jennifer's steady gaze, she sensed this case would reveal far more than a simple auto theft. The stage was set for a hearing that would expose how appearances, carefully crafted stories, and trusted relationships could mask deeper, darker truths. In Judge Judy's courtroom, justice required more than just convincing tears and well-prepared documentation. It demanded unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. The courthouse fell silent as James Bennett took the stand. His polished appearance, designer suit, perfectly knotted tie, and meticulously styled hair seemed at odds with someone claiming to be devastated by betrayal. Judge Judy noted how his hands trembled as he adjusted the microphone, though his voice remained surprisingly steady as he began his testimony. James painted a picture of trust destroyed. He described how he had shared everything with Jennifer during their 8-month relationship, including the spare keys to his cherished Mustang. His voice cracked when he mentioned his grandfather, who had gifted him the car shortly before passing away. The emotional display drew sympathetic murmurs from the gallery, but Judge Judy's expression remained unchanged. As James delved into the night of the alleged theft, His narrative took on an almost rehearsed quality. He described returning home from a late meeting to find the Mustang missing from its designated parking spot. According to his testimony, Jennifer had texted him earlier that evening about running errands. When he tried calling her phone, it went straight to voicemail. His voice rose with indignation as he described finding her closet emptied and a brief note that read, "I'm sorry, but I needed this." The evidence James presented seemed comprehensive. Timestamp security footage showing the Mustang leaving the apartment complex, bank statements showing unusual withdrawals from Jennifer's account the day before, and a series of text messages that appeared to show Jennifer planning something in secret. Each piece of evidence was accompanied by detailed documentation, all properly filed and organized. When questioned about Jennifer's motivation, James offered a theory that sent whispers through the courtroom. He claimed to have discovered Jennifer had accumulated substantial gambling debts at a casino 2 towns over. He produced printouts of alleged casino visits and credit card statements, suggesting a hidden addiction that had driven her to desperation. However, as James continued his testimony, subtle inconsistencies began to surface. His timeline of events shifted slightly with each retelling. When Judge Judy questioned him about the security footage timestamps, he stumbled briefly before offering an explanation about daylight savings time causing confusion. His answers about the insurance claim process seemed oddly precise, reflecting an expertise that went beyond what most car owners would possess. The most striking moment came when James described filing the police report. His account of Officer Rodriguez's investigation contained details that weren't included in the official documentation. When confronted with this discrepancy, James quickly attributed it to stress-induced confusion, but his confident demeanor briefly faltered. Throughout his testimony, James kept glancing at Jennifer, his expressions alternating between hurt and anger. Yet Judge Judy observed something else in those looks. Fleeting moments of calculation that seemed out of place for someone supposedly wounded by betrayal. His emotional displays, while convincing, appeared to peak during key points of his testimony, almost as if timed for maximum impact. As James concluded his account, he produced one final piece of evidence, a recorded voicemail from Jennifer that he claimed was left the night before the theft. The message contained what sounded like Jennifer discussing plans to leave town, but something about the audio quality caught Judge Judy's attention. She requested that the court's technical expert examine the recording, a decision that caused James to shift uncomfortably in his seat. The accusations painted a damning picture of Jennifer Thompson as a desperate woman driven by gambling addiction to betray her boyfriend's trust. Yet as James stepped down from the witness stand, Judge Judy's years of experience told her that the most convincing stories often concealed the biggest lies. The question remained, what truths lay buried beneath this perfectly constructed narrative of betrayal? Jennifer Thompson's testimony began with an unexpected calm that filled courtroom 7B. Gone was the nervous woman from earlier. In her place stood a kindergarten teacher of 5 years, her shoulders straight and voice unwavering. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly, intrigued by the transformation. Jennifer started not with the night of the alleged theft, but with 3 weeks prior. She described discovering discrepancies in James's stories about his late-night meetings. Her investigation had revealed no such meetings existed at his workplace. When she confronted him, James had brushed it off as a misunderstanding, but something about his reaction had triggered her professional instincts. The same one she used to spot when her kindergarten students weren't telling the whole truth. The courtroom absorbed every word as Jennifer methodically dismantled the gambling addiction narrative. She produced bank statements spanning the past 3 years, showing consistent spending patterns and regular savings deposits. Her school principal, Margaret, testified about Jennifer's perfect attendance record and recent nomination for Teacher of the Year. The supposed casino visits aligned perfectly with documented parent-teacher conferences and school board meetings. Jennifer's voice remained steady as she revealed her own investigation. The night before the alleged theft, she had received an anonymous email containing photos of James meeting with known insurance fraudsters at a bar outside town. The images were time-stamped and showed James handling documents while speaking with men later identified as Carl Martinez and Robert Drake, both previously convicted of insurance fraud. A turning point came when Jennifer presented her phone records. The mysterious text message about running errands showed clear signs of digital manipulation. The court's technical expert confirmed the metadata didn't match James's timeline. Furthermore, the expert's preliminary analysis of the voicemail James had presented revealed signs of audio splicing. Different recordings merged to create a false narrative. Jennifer Martinez, Jennifer's closest friend, took the stand to corroborate Jennifer's version of events. She testified about Jennifer's growing concerns over James's secretive behavior and late-night disappearances. Jennifer described how Jennifer had begun documenting everything after finding insurance paperwork with inflated values for the Mustang hidden in James's home office. The most compelling evidence came from Jennifer's own security measures. Fearing for her safety after discovering James's deception, she had installed a small camera in her classroom. The footage showed her teaching during the exact time James claimed she was stealing the car. Additional security footage from the school parking lot showed her car present throughout the day of the alleged theft. Officer Rodriguez returned to the stand, this time revealing details he'd initially withheld pending further investigation. The malfunctioning security cameras at the apartment complex hadn't failed by chance. Someone with technical expertise had disabled them remotely. The officer's investigation had traced the digital interference to a laptop registered to James's insurance office. As Jennifer's defense continued, Judge Judy observed James's demeanor shifting. His previously confident posture had given way to subtle signs of distress. A loosened tie, perspiration at his temples, fingers drumming nervously on the table. Each piece of evidence seemed to chip away at his carefully constructed facade. Jennifer concluded her testimony by addressing the emptied closet and farewell note. She explained that James had helped her pack for a supposed surprise weekend trip to visit her sister. The note, she testified, was actually about a planned birthday celebration for James's upcoming birthday. She produced text messages with James's sister confirming the surprise party arrangements. The defense presented one final witness, Thomas Bennett, James's estranged brother. Thomas testified about James's history of financial schemes, including a previous attempt to fraudulently report a motorcycle stolen for insurance money. The brothers hadn't spoken since Thomas had threatened to expose the scheme, leading to James hastily withdrawing the claim. As Jennifer's defense drew to a close, the atmosphere in courtroom 7B had transformed. The initial sympathy for James had evaporated, replaced by a growing understanding that this case involved far more than a stolen car. Judge Judy's expression remained neutral, but her pen moved steadily across her notepad, documenting key points that would soon prove crucial in unraveling the true nature of James Bennett's perfect lie. The courtroom's tension reached new heights as Judge Judy called for the presentation of newly discovered evidence. A senior investigator from the National Insurance Fraud Bureau stepped forward, carrying a thick folder that would shatter James Bennett's carefully constructed world of deception. The investigation had uncovered a sophisticated network of insurance fraud spanning 3 states. James wasn't merely a participant. He was a central figure who had used his position as an insurance adjuster to orchestrate multiple scams. The Mustang case represented his most ambitious scheme yet, but it would prove to be his undoing. Security footage emerged from a storage facility 50 miles outside of town. The timestamp showed James himself driving the cherry red Mustang through the facility's gates 2 days before reporting it stolen. He had rented the unit under an alias, but his fingerprints on the rental agreement matched perfectly. The facility's manager testified about helping James cover the car with a tarp, noting how careful he had been about keeping it out of sight. The investigator revealed bank records showing a pattern of large deposits into offshore accounts following previous insurance payouts. Each deposit corresponded with suspicious car theft claims James had processed through his office. His expertise in the insurance industry had allowed him to exploit loopholes and avoid detection, but his ambition had finally exceeded his caution. A forensic accountant took the stand, presenting a detailed analysis of James's finances. The gambling debts he had attributed to Jennifer were actually his own, carefully hidden through a series of shell companies. The casino visits he had documented were real, but the security footage showed James, not Jennifer, losing substantial sums at high-stakes poker tables. The technical evidence proved particularly damaging. The court's cybersecurity expert had recovered deleted emails from James's work computer, revealing correspondence with Carl Martinez and Robert Drake about the planned Mustang theft. The messages detailed how they would stage the theft, file the insurance claim, and later sell the car through underground channels. James had even boasted about using Jennifer as an unwitting alibi, certain that her pristine reputation would deflect suspicion. Officer Rodriguez presented additional findings about the security camera manipulation. The software used to disable the apartment complex's cameras matched programs found on James's laptop. Timestamps proved the system had been compromised using James's work credentials, accessing the security network during his late-night meetings. The most damning revelation came from an unexpected source. James's secretary, Patricia Wells, stepped forward with recordings of phone conversations she had secretly documented, concerned about her boss's increasingly suspicious behavior. The recordings captured James orchestrating the entire scheme, including his plans to frame Jennifer if the theft was discovered. In one particularly incriminating conversation, James could be heard laughing about how Jennifer's trusting nature made her the perfect scapegoat. He described planting false evidence, including the manipulated text messages and spliced voicemail. The calculated cruelty of his plotting sent shocked murmurs through the courtroom. Thomas Bennett returned to the stand, this time with their grandfather's original will. The document revealed another layer of deception. The Mustang had never legally belonged to James. The car had been left jointly to both brothers, but James had forged documents to claim sole ownership. This discovery transformed the insurance fraud into an even more complex web of crimes. The investigation had also uncovered James's previous victims. 2 other women had been similarly framed in insurance scams, but had been too intimidated by James's connections to fight the accusations. Both now came forward, their stories matching the pattern seen in Jennifer's case with devastating precision. As each piece of evidence fell into place, James's composure crumbled completely. His designer suit seemed to hang more loosely on his frame as he slumped in his chair. The confident smile that had opened the proceedings was replaced by a look of desperate calculation as he searched for an escape route that no longer existed. Judge Judy watched the color drain from James's face as his scheme collapsed around him. The perfect lie had been perfect indeed, not in its ability to deceive, but in how it had led to his downfall. Every careful step he had taken to frame Jennifer had instead created an irrefutable trail of his own crimes. The final blow came when Carl Martinez himself was brought into the courtroom in handcuffs. Having already struck a deal with prosecutors, he provided a complete account of James's insurance fraud operation. Martinez detailed how James had specifically chosen Jennifer for her spotless reputation, believing that any accusation she made would be dismissed in light of her apparent betrayal. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the full scope of James's deception became clear. What had begun as a simple case of alleged car theft had exposed a years-long criminal enterprise. Judge Judy's initial suspicions about the too-perfect documentation had led to the unraveling of what investigators would later call one of the most sophisticated insurance fraud schemes in the state's history. Judge Judy Sheindlin removed her reading glasses and surveyed the courtroom with unwavering focus. Her decades on the bench had presented numerous cases of deception, but few had matched the calculated manipulation displayed in this case. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the high windows as she prepared to deliver her judgment. The judge began by addressing Jennifer Thompson directly. She commended Jennifer's courage in gathering evidence and standing firm against the accusations, noting that her actions had not only cleared her name but had also exposed a criminal enterprise that had victimized others. The integrity she displayed, particularly in documenting everything properly and working with law enforcement, stood in stark contrast to the deception she had faced. Turning her attention to James Bennett, Judge Judy's voice took on a steely edge. She methodically outlined how his scheme had escalated from simple insurance fraud to a complex web of crimes including forgery, evidence tampering, criminal conspiracy, and attempted framing of an innocent person. His abuse of his professional position as an insurance adjuster had violated not only criminal law but also public trust. The judge specifically highlighted how James had exploited Jennifer's reputation and trust. His attempt to destroy the career of a dedicated teacher for financial gain demonstrated a disturbing lack of moral character. The premeditated nature of his actions, particularly in planting false evidence and manipulating digital records, indicated a level of calculation that demanded severe consequences. Judge Judy's ruling was comprehensive. James would face multiple criminal charges, with the insurance fraud investigation expanding to include all his previous cases. His professional licenses were immediately revoked. The judge ordered full financial restitution to Jennifer for legal expenses and damages to her reputation. Additionally, James would be required to make restitution to the other women he had previously framed in similar schemes. The Mustang, recovered from the storage facility, would be returned to its rightful co-owner, Thomas Bennett, after serving as evidence in the criminal proceedings. Judge Judy noted that James's attempt to steal his brother's inheritance through fraudulent documentation would result in additional charges. As bailiffs approached to take James into custody, his facade finally shattered completely. The man who had entered the courtroom in an expensive suit and confident smile was now a pale shadow of himself, his tie askew and hands trembling as he was handcuffed. His attempt to make a statement was cut short by Judge Judy, who reminded him that he had forfeited that right through his persistent perjury. Jennifer sat quietly as the judgment was delivered, tears of relief sliding down her cheeks. Jennifer Martinez, her loyal friend, held her hand as Judge Judy concluded the proceedings by addressing the broader implications of the case. The judge emphasized how this case highlighted the importance of thorough investigation and the courage to stand up against false accusations, no matter how well-crafted they might appear. The gallery watched in silence as James was led away, his carefully constructed world of deception collapsing with each step. Officer Rodriguez stood ready to escort him directly to booking, where he would begin facing the consequences of his actions. The National Insurance Fraud Bureau investigators were already preparing for a broader investigation into his past cases, ensuring that no stone would be left unturned in uncovering the full extent of his crimes. 1 month after the dramatic courtroom revelation, the ripples of James Bennett's scheme continued to spread through the community. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Millbrook Elementary as Jennifer Thompson stood before her kindergarten class, welcomed back with handmade cards and tight hugs from her students. The school board had not only reinstated her but issued a formal apology and nominated her for a state teaching award. The National Insurance Fraud Bureau's investigation had uncovered the full scope of James's operation. 17 additional cases of insurance fraud emerged across 3 states, leading to multiple indictments. James's network of accomplices, facing overwhelming evidence, began turning on each other, providing prosecutors with detailed confessions that would ensure justice for all their victims. Thomas Bennett had restored their grandfather's Mustang to its rightful place in the family garage. The car, no longer a symbol of deception, became a bridge for healing the brothers' relationship. Thomas spent weekends teaching his daughter basic car maintenance, honoring their grandfather's memory in the way it was always meant to be. Jennifer's story sparked important changes in the insurance industry. New protocols were implemented to prevent adjusters from processing claims involving personal connections. The State Insurance Board launched a comprehensive review of all cases handled by James, ensuring that no fraudulent claims had slipped through unnoticed. Jennifer Martinez organized a support group for victims of insurance fraud, with Jennifer as a guest speaker. Their first meeting brought together dozens of people sharing similar stories, creating a network of support and advocacy that spread beyond Millbrook's borders. Jennifer's experience became a source of strength for others facing false accusations. Officer Rodriguez received a commendation for his thorough investigation. His initial suspicions about the security camera malfunctions had opened the door to uncovering the larger conspiracy. The police department used the case as a training example for new officers, demonstrating the importance of following every lead, no matter how small. Judge Judy's detailed court opinion became required reading at the state law school's ethics course. Her methodical approach to uncovering the truth, despite the sophisticated nature of the deception, served as a model for aspiring legal professionals. She occasionally gave lectures about the case, emphasizing how justice requires both attention to detail and unwavering commitment to the truth. Patricia Wells, James's former secretary, received a whistleblower award for her role in exposing the fraud. Her careful documentation of suspicious activities proved invaluable to prosecutors. She found a new position at a prestigious law firm, where her integrity and attention to detail were properly valued. The storage facility manager who had helped identify James installed a new security system, implementing stricter identification requirements for unit rentals. His testimony had highlighted how criminals could exploit simple businesses for complex schemes, leading to industry-wide policy changes. Jennifer herself found unexpected healing through the experience. While the betrayal had been painful, her success in exposing the truth strengthened her belief in justice. She channeled her experience into teaching her students about honesty and courage, turning a personal tragedy into valuable life lessons for young minds. One autumn afternoon, as Jennifer left school, she passed the courthouse where her ordeal had ended. Judge Judy happened to be leaving at the same time. The two women shared a knowing look, united in their understanding that justice, while sometimes slow, arrives with undeniable force when truth prevails over deception.